Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm doing the end of 2020 book survey. This survey was created by Perpetual Page Turner years ago, and I've been doing it since I had my blog in like 2014, so I've been doing it for quite a while. I do this every year, and I thought this year why not do it in video format. I'm not going to talk through all the questions because some of them are related to blogging and the future and sort of 2021 releases, and this is going to be a really long video as it is anyway, so I thought I'd just cut those out. Most of the looking forward to 2021 questions I've answered in my 2021 reading resolutions video, which I will leave linked down below, go check that out. I'm also not going to be holding up any of the books for this because there are so many questions and so many books I'd have to hold up that I just can't be bothered. So I'm going to just insert photos like here or here, depending on how I feel. So the first little section is just 3 questions about your reading stats. So the first question is the number of books you read in 2020, and for me that was 139. I'm really happy with that amount. I think last year in 2019 I read about 160, I want to say, so it's a little bit less, but I was in my final year of uni this year and it was quite hard. So I'm really happy with how much I read because I enjoyed quite a lot of the books I read. The next question is how many books did you reread? And for me that was 27. I love rereading, but this year I kind of fell even more in love with it. I reread many favourite series of mine. I reread books quite a few times, and I started counting them towards my reading goal because they should count towards my reading goal. I think rereading is one of the best things to do because you just rediscover a world that you loved and you realise why you loved it, and it's just great. And the final question is what genre did you read the most from? And for me that was definitely like YA contemporary / romance / adult romance. So essentially like that kind of genre of contemporary romance. I always read those books more than anything else. I love reading them. They are the best books in my opinion. They are some of the quickest and easiest books to get into. So. And the other section that is a part of this is your best in books, so best of these things in books. And there are many questions for this, so let's just dive straight in. The first one is obviously your favourite book of 2020. For me that was Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. I absolutely love this book. I did do a video of my favourite books of 2020 and I'll leave that link down below as well. I'm really proud of that video and I talked about some of the books that I absolutely loved. The next question is a book that you thought you were going to love but you didn't, and for me that is The Bookish Life of Nina Hill by Abby Waxman. This is an adult romance book that follows a bookish main character, and I thought I would love it because it's what I tend to enjoy in books. However, it was just not good. I found the main character to be really horrible to everybody she interacted with, particularly the love interest. She was absolutely awful to him. Question number 3 is your most surprising read. For me that is You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle. I went into this with no expectations. I just thought it would be something fun and cute to read, and I came away with my second favourite book of the year. I have also already reread this and I love this romance. It's one of my favourite romances. It's probably joint with The Hating Game as my favourite romance, so I absolutely love it. Question number 4 is the book that you push most people to read. I'm not really sure what that book would be. The only one that kind of comes to mind is American Royals. I think I also answered it with this in 2019 because I read it in 2019 and I loved it. In 2020 I read the sequel and I made a whole video about why you need to read American Royals, and I've had quite a few people like message me and say, oh, I downloaded this because of you, which is quite nice. It's one of my favourite books. I absolutely loved it. So next question is the best series that you started in 2020, and for me that is Chain of Gold. I don't really read a lot of series anymore. I'm not a huge fan of investing in a series if I don't know if I'm gonna like it, and I'm kind of scared to do that now. But of course I had to start reading the new Shadowhunter book series, like that was a given, it had to happen. So the next question is your best sequel, and for me that was Heartstopper Volume 3. I didn't have many to choose from because I didn't read many sequels. This was just a great addition to the book series and I absolutely love this graphic novel series. If you haven't read it, you're missing out because it's fantastic. The next question is your best series ender, and as I said I didn't have many to pick from. I think the only series that I finished this year was the Dear Martin duology by Nick Stone. I read both of them this year and that is literally the only one that qualified for this, which is fine because I absolutely loved this series, so I would highly recommend this. The next question is your favourite new author, and for me that was probably S.A. Domingo or Sarita Domingo. I read 2 of her books in 2020. I read her adult romance, which is If I Don't Have You, and then I also read her YA romance, which is Love Secret Santa, and I just really enjoyed her book. I think her character is always really interesting and I'm excited to read more books by her. I know that there are spin-offs of Love Secret Santa that I need to read, but overall I just think she's a great author. The next question is the best book in a genre you don't typically read. And 2020 was kind of a year for non-fiction for me. I mean that I read 3, which is unusual for me to read that many. I didn't read a lot, but I read 3, which is unusual for me because I don't really read a lot of non-fiction. I particularly enjoyed 2 of them. The first was Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, which is a really important story and I absolutely loved it, particularly via audiobook. And the second one is I Want to Be Where the Normal People Are by Rachel Bloom, which is another one that I listened to via audio and fell in love with. I love listening to non-fiction because I just think it works a lot better, and I absolutely adore these 2. The next question is the most unput-downable read, and for me that is definitely The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. I flew through this book. It is told in verse, so it's very quickly to fly through, but I read it very quickly because I was just so addicted to what was happening, and I loved the writing. The writing was absolutely beautiful, and it really was an unput-downable book. The next question is the book that you'd be most likely to reread. Actually quite a few. Most of my favourite books of the year I think I will reread. I have obviously already read You Deserve Each Other Again. I reread it 3 times or 4 times already in 2020. I do also plan on rereading Chain of Gold in preparation for Chain of Iron because I love that series and I want to have all the knowledge in my head before I go into Chain of Iron. The next question is your favourite book cover. This is quite hard because there are so many great book covers, but for me I'd probably pick The Reckless Afterlife of Harriet Stoker by Lauren James. I love all of her covers because they're all stunning, but this one I just love the colours and the vibe. Like, it's just so underrated and it's so like simple but beautiful. Number 13 is your most memorable character, and for me I'm going to go with Addie from A Kind of Spark by Al McNicol. She was a very unique character to follow. I've never followed a character anything like her. She was really interesting and I loved following her perspective in that story. I kind of wish we had more books coming from her perspective because I love it. The next question is the most beautifully written book, and for me I'm going to pick Punching the Air by Ibi Zobor and Yusuf Salaam because it's written in verse and it's just so beautiful and it really makes you think about writing more in a way. Next we have the most thought-provoking read, and for me that has to be Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race. Like, this really does make you think. It's designed for that and it does it in such a great way. It teaches you about race but in a different way because it's more anecdotal than most typical non-fiction books. What is a book that you can't believe you waited until 2020 to read? For me that is 3. I'm going to name all 3. First is Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill because I absolutely love that book. Then we have The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak and Wonder by R.J. Palacio. All 3 of these books have been on my TBR since 2014, so I've owned them for ages and just never got to them, and all 3 of them were in my top 10 books of the year. That's how much I loved them. So the next question I'm actually going to skip, and that is your favourite quote from a book because I actually never really pay attention to quotes. I'm really bad with that stuff. So next question is what is the shortest book you read, and for me that is The Prince and the Troll by Rain Burrell, which is like a 15-page short story fairy tale that's on Kindle. And it was okay, it wasn't great. Then we obviously have the longest book you read, and for me that is Chain of Gold. Almost every year the longest book I've read is Cassandra Clare because I will not read any other long books unless they're written by Cassandra Clare. The next question is the book that shocked you the most, and for me I'm going to go with Not If I See You First by Eric Lindstrom because I've also had this on my TBR since 2015 and never read it because no one ever talks about it, and then I finally read it and I really loved it, and I'm really sad that nobody talks about it because it's great. Number 21 is your favourite OTP of the year. I'm going to go with Adam and Zainab from Love to A to Z. I don't really do like OTPs anymore. I don't know why. I'm just never that invested in a couple. Obviously I love Nicholas and Naomi from You Deserve Each Other, and I love all the characters in Chain of Gold, but I absolutely loved Adam and Zainab because I wasn't expecting to like them. I came away from it really loving their romance and I think that's really cute. Number 22 is your favourite non-romantic relationship, and I went with Clap When You Land because the relationship between the 2 sisters is really unique and it's a different dynamic because they don't know that the other person exists until the course of the book, and it just like it works so well, and Elizabeth Acevedo writes beautifully. So the next question is your favourite book from an author that you've already read from. I could pick Chain of Gold again, but I'm going to talk about my 3rd favourite book of the year, which is Loveless by Alice Oseman. I've loved every single one of her books. I absolutely love her as an author. Loveless was no exception. I adored this book. I was so excited for it, mainly because I knew that it was very personal to her, and it's just such a great book. The next question is the best book you read based on a recommendation, and I decided to go with Punching the Air by Ibi Zobori and Yusuf Salaam. I'd never heard of this book, I didn't see anyone talking about it before release, but when it came out, a bunch of the bookstagrammers I follow were obsessed with it and were talking about how it's absolutely amazing, so I picked it up based on that, and I'm really happy that I did because I loved it. Number 25 is your newest fictional crush. I don't really have a lot of fictional crushes this year, I don't know why, but I'll probably go with Nicholas from You Deserve Each Other because I think he's great and I love him and I love them together and they're just wonderful. Next question is the best 2020 debut, and I have to pick A Kind of Spark by Al Nicole. I think her writing is beautiful. She is a great voice for middle grade and I think she will do wonders in years to come. Number 27 is the best world building that you read, and for me I have to go with The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. This world was so well developed. I haven't read a lot of fantasy this year, but the way that this world was set up, it's just beautifully written, and I loved the world because you could understand it. There wasn't any parts that I didn't understand, which I quite liked. The next question is the book that was the most fun to read, and I have to go with You Deserve Each Other again because it's beautiful. I absolutely had so much fun reading this. It made me laugh out loud, and I don't remember the last book that made me laugh out loud. It was just the light that 2020 needed for me. The next question is a book that made you cry. I have never cried in a book, ever, but the book that brought me the closest to tears this year would probably be The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. It was so heartbreaking and heart-wrenching, and I kind of knew it was going to be when I went into it. Question 30 is the hidden gem of the year, and I have to go with 4 Days of You and Me by Miranda Kennelly. If you like YA romance, you will love this book because it's such an underrated YA romance. I absolutely adored it. I wish more people read it because I think it's a great YA romance if you enjoy that genre, and it's great. For number 31, we have a book that crushed your soul. I have to go with Chain of Gold because the ending, everything involving James, it broke my heart, and I want them all to be happy, and I know they won't be happy until the final book, but I just want everyone to be happy. Question 32 is the most unique read, and for me that is Afterlove by Tanya Byrne because this concept was really interesting. The way that afterlife is dealt with in this book is very different to any other book I've read that deals with it, not that I've read many. And the final question is the book that made you the most mad, and that is How It All Blew Up by Arvid Armadi. This was my least favourite book of the year. If you want to know more about why, go check out my list of least favourite books of the year and it will explain it all in there because I don't want to repeat it again. So that was the end of the 2020 book survey. I love doing this survey because I love kind of wrapping up my reading, and looking back at it in years to come is really interesting. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you in my next one.